The only thing Sally hears when she got out of her boyfriend's car are her own heels. It's in the middle of the night, literally 3 a.m. in the morning. It's been raining. That means anyone that would like to go for a midnight walk is probably not going to be walking that night. That means she's completely alone. All she hears are her heels. And when a breeze comes, she hears the leaves moving. The trees are making a sound. But besides that, it's very peaceful. The street is reflecting the sky because it's been raining. So that means everything is wet around her, but that's okay. As long as she's not gonna die from freezing to death, because she's now also wet. She's in a short skirt. She's been out all night. The only thing that may keep her warm is the fact that she's tipsy. Usually when you're outside alone, what is the last thing you want to hear? For me, it's the last thing I would want to hear if I would go outside for a walk at 3 a.m. in the morning is footsteps approaching me, or a male voice, no offense. But that is exactly what happened to Sally. As she's walking home, she's 10 yards away from her home, she starts hearing a man's footsteps. They were heavy footsteps, so she knew it was a man. All of a sudden, things happen really fast. All she can do right now is fight him off of her. She's trying, but he's a big guy. I mean, he's an average man. Sally is slim, so she doesn't weigh a lot, and he weighs way more than her. That means he has overpowered her, and the last thing Sally's going to be doing that night is scream in terror, because she will be killed 10 yards away from her doorstep. It's now 6:30 in the morning, and this neighbor is always doing her 6:30 walks, but this time it would end a little bit differently. As she walks by the street, on the sidewalk, she sees a mannequin peeking out of the bushes, and she just sees the leg. It's super pale. She's short. Teenagers are stupid. They always leave stuff everywhere. They steal and they just throw shit away that where it doesn't belong, especially. So she's like, okay, let me just check what that is. As she approaches, she's starting to realize that the mannequin looks very much alive, or maybe not alive, but too real to be a mannequin. And all of a sudden, she's standing in front of Sally's body that is in a pool of her own blood. As quickly as she can, she calls 999. That's the UK emergency number. The police shows up and they figure out the whole situation. This is Sally. She's 18 years old. She's an aspiring model, and she's been found in a pool of her own blood. She's basically naked. Her skin is so white and pale that it's almost translucent. And she is extremely cold as well, since her body has been laying there all night. Sally has been killed with 7 extremely savagely executed stab wounds. A huge investigation was launched for that case. It was one of the largest investigations launched in the UK at that time. And shortly after it was launched, there were many efforts that the police took, but something happened that was unconnected to that investigation. A man was arrested for violent, disorderly conduct, and usually for certain crimes you swap DNA, and that was one of the crimes. So he had his DNA swapped. He was in the similar area as the crime took place, as the killing of Sally took place. And based on the track record that this man had, police thought that he could be a potential fit for the murder. And obviously they were like, we found him that fast? They're having his DNA get analyzed and everything to see if he's a match. But after the results came back, they had to get disappointed. The man had nothing to do with the killing. His DNA was not a match. So in this situation, they had to not only let him go for the killing of Sally, which he was suspected of, but they also had to delete his DNA profile basically from their database. And that is not something that is done in every single country, but in some countries it's done, and the UK is one of them. So 1 year after this man's release, there was a woman that was subjected to a series of extreme sexual assault by a stranger. There were absolutely no leads as to who committed these crimes towards that woman. But luckily, the woman had DNA under her fingernails found. And this is like a wonder. The database alerted a link to the man that was arrested for Sally's murder shortly before that happened. The man was then sentenced to 6 years in jail. And a senior officer said, "We would have never caught him if the DNA was not in the database still. They didn't even know how it was still there, but somehow it was a miracle." And this just comes to show the importance of DNA when it comes to crimes. They are one of the best leads that you can have. Sometimes they lead to unexpected matches, solving the case ultimately. So after the police moved on from the wrong suspect, they had a poster of like a drawing that was made based on witnesses that were in that area of Sally's death. And they had a poster of the wrong sketch on and up on their website and everything for months. It's kind of unclear how that even happened, because drawings of criminals are usually based on witness statements, obviously, but in this situation they must have mixed it up. Like, they must have mixed up the drawing, and they had this drawing up for many months connected to the Sally case. There was just many false arrests throughout the whole thing, ultimately going nowhere, and they failed to track down the killer for some time. So the investigation was put on hold for now, until a man got into a pub fight. He was drinking, he loves drinking. Actually, he's a pub chef, so he's in pubs all the time. He drinks all the time, and usually he has himself kind of under control, but this time was not the time. A man provoked him, or at least that's what he said, and they got into a fight. It was so aggressive and so violent that police arrested them for the fights, and they swapped DNA. That is, like we just said with the other case, that is a normal thing that they do, especially with violent crimes. And as they put in the DNA into the database of the man in the pub fight, the database is alerting them that this is a match. A match for who? He matched with the Sally case. They found the killer because of this pub fight. So who was the killer? The killer was a man who was a pub chef. He had previous convictions, no connections to Sally at all. I mean, he was way, way older than her. Sally is, at that point, she was 18 years old. She was born on September 11th, 1987, to her parents Paul and Linda Bowman. And some things about her family dynamic: she was a very sweet girl because she was the youngest of the family, you know, the baby of the family. And Sally is described as the most genuine and heartwarming person that was out there. She is born to be a star. Everyone she walked towards just admired her, not just for her looks, but for her confidence and for her talent. She was not just confident and talented, she was headstrong. She had a will, and she would find a way to get it. She was also very opinionated, and she just knew what she wanted pretty early on in life. But at the same time, she was someone she was a bit childish and a bit naive as well. But that didn't stop her from being one of the most talented performers that anyone knew in her area. She would rock karaoke nights at local pubs. As a young girl, she loved singing and dancing and entertaining the family and her friends, and it was very beautiful. People were always entertained by her. Sometimes she would invite friends over to her home, and just not just let them participate, she would just sing for them. So this kind of passion that she had from a very, very early age was no surprise to people that she attended the same school as Adele, Amy Winehouse, and a lot of other celebs that come from the UK. She attended the Brit School of Performing Arts and Technology in Croydon. Her peers called her Barbie because at that time she had what everyone longed for. She had this long, beautiful blonde hair. She had long legs, a slim frame. She had like a Kate Moss nose, like a button cute nose, and she had beautiful blue eyes. Honestly, her eyes are gorgeous. But peers didn't just know her for her looks, they also knew her for her talent. She was so good at acting, dancing, and she was basically the whole package. And she was, the thing is, you can be good at these kind of things, right? But being good at them and being able to be in the spotlight, I think that is something that you kind of bring everything to the table, Now it's just experience that you're missing. But even though she was at the same school as Adele and other celebrities, she decided that was not really how she thought she was gonna find her way in her career. So she joined a local modeling agency, and at the same time she was working as a hairdresser to finance her career as well. So she had things really going for her. One of her biggest role models was Kate Moss. She loved her. She wanted to be like her, She identified with her as well. And she was compared to her too. So as you can imagine, her career took off pretty quickly. People in the model industry who worked with Sally actually said that we didn't need to teach her anything. She already had what would qualify someone to be in the spotlight. We didn't have to teach her to be in front of the camera on the catwalk. She just had it naturally. And as hardworking as she was, people really thought that she was going to make it. She was going to become who she wanted to become. With her early success as a model, she became the face of Swatch. Okay, so Swatch was a huge watch brand at the time. They have been around since the 1970s. They're originally from Switzerland, and they were founded by 3 Swiss people who decided it was smart to start this kind of watch brand after the watch revolution. So the watch revolution was basically a revolution in the watchmaking industry. The battery system was kind of replaced, so watches would run mechanically. Usually there were watchmakers who were very skilled in watchmaking, and they would have to charge up the battery, and then it runs like a spinning thing inside of the watch that eventually runs out. But that also means that it's not 100% accurate, like the time is not very accurate. At the time, watches didn't have batteries. So the watch revolution is when quartz watches became a thing. A quartz watch is battery powered and it's extremely accurate. It's unlike mechanical watches who are powered by what I explained to you, the winding that happens. But even though these kind of mechanical watches started to become out of style after the 1980s, they were still and are still to this day extremely valued for the craftsmanship, and watch lovers will still love these kind of watches. They're just not commonly used anymore. So that is the watch revolution, and that means that was a huge thing. Her being signed to this brand was a huge thing. They were popping back in the days. They were expanding rapidly, and I don't know if you remember this, but I personally remember these kind of watches. I'm gonna show them to you in a second, but they're basically like silicone watches and very colorful designs. It kind of like rainbow-ish designs and stuff like that. So very colorful and somewhat simple, but also a bit extra and goofy as well. So that was a huge deal for her. And the fact is that her success at such an early age also made her a little bit intimidating to especially like boys her age. She had a lot of admirers, but at the same time she had this aura about her, you know, like when you meet someone who just knows exactly what they want and they go for it, you know, like they work their ass off to get there. And on top of that, she was beautiful. Her voice was beautiful. So it didn't take long for her to get a boyfriend, you know. So she got into a relationship with someone her age, and both of them were very young, very stubborn people, her boyfriend as well, and they had a huge thing in the relationship. They were both very jealous. She was jealous of him, he was jealous of her, and not jealous in terms of just the success that she had, but also that he always thought she was with other guys, and she always thought he was with other girls. There were constantly accusations of cheating going around, and the couple was literally, by people around them, the couple was described as bitterly jealous, like bitter, you know. So there were a lot of toxic things going on as well. They would push each other, and they would get pretty physically harsh in their relationship. So that was definitely not a good thing that people around them also witnessed, and it didn't quite make the accusations of him being her killer easier, because he was the first suspect police had after her murder until the DNA match that was happening. How exactly did this even happen? What led up to someone randomly killing this beautiful girl? Well, the pub chef was celebrating on the same night as Sally was celebrating, but he in fact was celebrating his 35th birthday. He was surrounded by friends, as he always is. He is someone that loves to party, and when he parties hard. That means he would drink, he would take drugs, and you know, maybe you know one or two people in your life, or you heard of people like that. They work, they eat whatever is necessary, and they drink. Like, I personally don't know them, but I heard of people like that before. So he was really very much the life of every party, regardless of how drunk and high he was or whatever he was on. That's how friends would describe him. But sometimes he would just take it too far, like a little bit too far. But because it was so fun and he was kind of the life and soul of the party, friends would just kind of go along with it. They said he brings so much energy, and it's okay, you know, like it would be fine. But no one expected the night to take the turn that it ended up taking. After the party kind of toned down at 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, he would go outside for a stroll after the party. It was in the middle of the night, and he was just wandering, looking for sex. He was armed with a knife, and this is when he came across Sally, who was just dropped off by her boyfriend after their argument. Sally and her boyfriend had a really intense argument that night that was reenacted by the police as part of the trial. And here we see what really happened at the night of Sally's death. She was out with one of her older sisters, Nicole, and a group of friends. They were partying and just enjoying their night. In the early hours of September, she persuaded her boyfriend, Lewis, to come and pick her up to drive her home. He had to be persuaded because they had some kind of issue before, and he thought she was with girls. She thought he was with guys, so it took a lot of effort for her to get him to come. Once Lewis arrived, the couple got into another argument because of these accusations, and it even got that far of them accusing each other of cheating. The argument intensified so much that the boyfriend Lewis had to force Sally out of the car, basically. And after that, Sally grabbed his throat and kind of pushed him against the car so he doesn't leave, because she still wanted to sort out the situation. She even got so far to climb on his car after holding him back didn't work, and to stop him from leaving. Well, that didn't work either, and he just drove off at around 3 a.m. We know that she was very close to her home. He thought she was going to be safe just walking the last 10 yards to her home. But little did Sally know that someone was watching the argument the whole time it was happening. He was angry at Sally for how she talked to her boyfriend, and the killer was triggered because his ex didn't wish him a happy birthday that night. That's what he confessed in court later, that he was very irritated because his ex didn't say happy birthday, and Sally was shouting at her boyfriend, and that triggered him somehow. So he approached Sally to rape her, but because Sally fought back so hard and really, like, she scratched the living shit out of him, and she really tried her best, but nothing was in her favor, and overall she really didn't stand a chance against the size of an average man. And Dixie, not to calm Sally down, but to make her fight back, he stabbed her. So that's how it started. He stabbed her extremely violently, multiple times, one through the neck, severing an artery, and the rapid blood loss made her be unable to fight at all. And after she was laying on the ground in a pool of her own blood and basically dying or already dead, he started to bite her chest and other places of her body, and they were quite severe bite marks that he left. He also inserted concrete lumps into her mouth and her private parts. Also raping her while she was on the ground. He finished off by smoking a joint next to her body and just left her body laying in the bushes. Witness statements later say that a couple of hours before her body was found, they heard screaming. They heard a lot of screaming. And because they were suspicious, this one witness came to the window and was just waiting to see if the screaming is going to come again, because it disappeared. But then it didn't come again, so the person left the window. The screaming started again and then came back to the window. Eventually the person would just leave because they thought maybe some girls were having fun or something, screaming, because it was, people were out partying, and sometimes that happens. So the person went to sleep, and that was when 2 hours later a woman found Sally laying on the ground in the bushes, first thinking that it was a mannequin. And when the police came, they almost thought it was a crime of passion because how savage these knife wounds were. She was stabbed so aggressively that they thought it was a personal attack or someone that she knew. It was very evident that she was raped. It was evident what the motive was, or part of the motive was. And the police immediately arrested the boyfriend, actually. When the boyfriend was in custody, he asked them, "Is this about the row with my girlfriend last night?" And he also said, I thought she made it home. I thought she was perfectly well and healthy. It was just a normal argument. It was found out pretty quickly that he was not the one who did it. So let's talk about the killer. The killer is Mark Dixie. He is a pub chef. He's originally from the UK, and he lived in some rundown kind of apartment, just spending his days walking around town, working and drinking, basically. He loved drinking. His friends describe him as the life and soul of the party, so that is exactly what you can expect from him. And after his DNA matched, it was 100% match. There was no doubt that he was the killer. So then this trial started, and Jurors were warned that this case is going to be a lot, and they needed to stay calm and as much without emotion as possible when hearing about the details of the killing. Dixie that night he was drunk and he was on cocaine, which explained why the murder was so violent. He admitted to having sex with Sally as she was lying dead. Dixie's defense team first tried to push the whole attention on the ex-boyfriend or the boyfriend, and they said, yeah, he killed her in a bitter row. He was so jealous. He had a track record of being jealous. And they directly accused him of the murder. And they basically said, yeah, Dixie abused the situation, but he's not the killer. He raped this girl while she was lying dead, but he's not the killer. So there's several problems, obviously, with that defense. Dixie had a long record of being perverted. At 16 years old, he robbed a woman at knife point before fondling her breasts. So he was robbing a woman at 16 and then touching her breasts afterwards, fondling with them. It's even worse. He had also a long record of previous convictions, including the robbery one, sexual assault, and indecent exposure. There was a situation where a woman was in a call box to make a call, and Dixie came outside of the box, and he was just standing there pulling down his pants and started masturbating while holding eye contact with the woman. The woman was so scared, she was trying to hold the door, like super desperately trying to hold it closed because he tried to get inside of the box. But eventually he ran off and he was convicted of that as well. I don't know what kind of charges he faced. There was no information on that I was able to find. And in 1993, he moved to Australia. He worked also as a pub chef there for 6 years. For some reason, he used a false name, Shane Turner. And yeah, he was kind of just living there, messing around and enjoying his life. He was partying a lot and using a lot of drugs. He also had kids with a woman, with his ex-partner, which is kind of random. But the UK police, during the trial, the UK police and the Australian police, they actually cooperated. And one of the leading detectives said, I believe there's a strong possibility that he has killed before because of his 20-year-long history of violence towards women. So in 1998 in Australia, he actually attacked a Jehovah's Witness in a lift, and he threatened to kill her. Like, it seemed completely unprovoked, super random. And a lift, by the way, elevator, so two different words, but same meaning. And then another incident, there was a Thai woman in Western Australia where he was, that accused him of raping and stabbing her. So this man is a serious criminal, and he has really, really, really bad record with women and doing things to women. But eventually there's two versions of how he left Australia. He either got deported because his visa ran out, or other sources say that he got deported because he was convicted of a sexual offense. So it could be both. I'm not sure which it was, because there was conflicting information on this. And his friends that knew him like for many years, they don't understand where this came from, because to them he never showed the side to them, the sexual violence kind of side. And at least that's what they say. I don't know if his friends are only men or if he also has female friends, but that's a general statement, that his friends were apparently clueless about it. And the mother of his 3 children says that sexually he was like pretty normal, but occasionally like sex would get a bit rough as well. But I would say that is pretty normal. And many of his former friends and people he just associated with, After this whole thing, they wanted to have nothing to do with him. They despised him for what he did, which good on them. And they rejected basically any association that they had with him, which that's how you gotta deal with people like that, you know? But Dixie's sentencing came out, and Dixie claimed that lust just got the better of him. And he even said, sorry guys, that is so ridiculous. He praised Sally for how brave she was of fighting back. Like, he praised her. He had the nerve to praise her and say she was so brave. She really tried her best to fight me off. Sorry, but this man is so out of touch. He basically said he didn't have a choice but stab her because she was fighting back so hard. One of the judges said that it doesn't freaking matter if you didn't have a choice, if you raped her while she was laying dead or dying. It's what you did was revolting regardless. While he was trying to like justify it, like hello. And there's no way that he could have gotten himself out of this. DNA match, 100% a match. People heard the screams that night. He was drunk. He was in the same area as Sally. And I mean, the pieces are put together basically. So Dixie was eventually charged with Sally's murder on February 4th, 2008. And yeah, he's gonna be spending 34 years in prison for that crime. Sally's mother said that Sally had such a bright future ahead of her, and it really hurts to never see her be able to accomplish what she could have accomplished. And Sally was actually about to get to be signed with another leading model agency. So she was about to switch from the model agency she was at to a leading model agency in the UK. And Sally's murder really took the dream from her daughter and ultimately her life, just because of this man's disgusting desires. And on Sally's 21st birthday, the family and friends and other people gathered together, and it was really cute. They had so many pink balloons, pink glitter balloons. Everyone was dressed like in pink and nice clothing, and they just celebrated Sally's 21st birthday. Sometime after the sentencing, Mark Dixie actually tried to put an appeal up. The goal was to just challenge the conviction. From the defense perspective, it was like, I didn't kill her, I took advantage of the situation, and I did a sexual crime, sexual assault. But that's not murder, right? And so that's why they were trying to challenge it, so he gets a smaller sentence. But the day in court, like they had a court appointment for the appeal, Sally's mother and the sister were sitting like in the courtroom as well, because they wanted to know what's about to happen, right? So they were super anxious, very scared, and they were just praying that this appeal will not be let through, right? Sometimes technicalities kind of just get in the way of justice, and that's what they were scared of. But luckily, the panel of 3 judges said that this appeal is without any merit, and completely denying the appeal for Dixie. And the mother of Sally actually said that this is the best thing that could have happened, and he should just accept what he did basically, and realize that that is his final chapter, and she wishes him that he burns in hell. Yeah, after that appeal, by the way, remember, he has not yet admitted to the killing. So he was sentenced based on the evidence, but not based on his testimony. So he actually, after this failed attempt of an appeal, he finally admitted to having killed Sally. Which, I don't know if this sounds like a big thing to you guys, because it's like, yeah, the evidence is pretty clear, right? But I feel like if you are the family and the evidence is pointing at someone and the person's just denying and like making it sound as if he didn't do it and like it was nothing. I think that this brings closure, or can bring closure to someone, simply because he is finally admitting to doing it and maybe giving them some peace through doing that. And there's one crazy thing that was found out after this whole situation with Sally. Dixie was connected to 2 more sex attacks, including 1 murder. The one victim was a homeless mom of 3. She was attacked 8 months before Sally, and the attack is described as deranged violent attack. It was such a violent rape and killing. And Jennifer was raped while dying on her stab wounds, just like Sally. And he even tried to set her on fire. Just like Sally, Jennifer was walking alone that night on a late night weekend, and he stabbed her 16 times. There was DNA found on Jennifer's body, but police was never able to link it to anybody. But after Dixie was arrested and everything, and the case was it was a cold case, but it was opened again, and the database, it alerted that this is a match. We have found the match for this person as well. So he was then also charged for the murder of Jennifer, only because the case of Sally was able to track him down, and he got into this fight. Isn't that crazy? He got into a fight in the bar. If he wouldn't have gotten into that fight in that bar, they would have never had the DNA. They would have never been able to connect it to Sally, and all these other women that he has violently attacked, including Jennifer, who he has killed. And the police believes that he may have even killed more women than 2, which is very likely with someone that is so impulsive and so aggressive towards women, has so much hate. And there's something really sad that happened with Sally, or Sally's grave. Sally's grave was attacked 4 times in 6 months. We don't know why exactly, but it seems like it was just vandals who would smash things and smash the headstone, and people that maybe had a lot of hate, or teenagers, we don't know. But it was very sad because her mother and her father had to guard the girl's grave until they were able to move the grave to another place, or to move the ashes to another place. So Sally had to get exhumed and then put into a different location that was more fitting and more safe for her. And eventually that was able to be done, and now she's at a safe place. To this day, Sally's mom is missing items from Sally, including her passport, Chanel bag, phone, and wallet that was stolen during her murder. And the mother was basically begging Dixie to tell her where the stuff is, but he has never responded. He's never opened up and told her where her things are. It may be that he has taken them, put them somewhere, and just left them there, but it could also be that other people saw her and saw her stuff laying around and took them without alerting the police of her body laying there. So we don't know what happened to these items, but they are missing to this day, and I would imagine that as a mother you would want these things back. Well, guys, that was the case of Sally, and yeah, really unfortunate case, really sad case. She was a young girl, she had a really bright future ahead of her, but I'm at least happy for the family that they got closure in the sense of the murderer admitting to the killing. But I don't know if ever any kind of punishment like sitting in jail is enough for people like that. I couldn't say it is. I really couldn't say it is, because of all the pain you leave behind for people. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this case. I will catch you next week. From now on, I will upload every Tuesday. That's the goal, at least. And I hope to see you guys there as well. Bye bye.